Welcome, everyone. It's an exciting time, a lot of great information to talk about today. I guess the natural place to start would be about Marc-Andre Fleury joining us here in Chicago. I had a chance to spend an hour with him earlier today over at Fifth Third Arena, and it was great to spend some time speaking with him, showing him around, talking about our team, and a couple of our players were there. He got a chance to say hello to them. A lot of smiles going around. Certainly, it's a huge addition to our team. We're thrilled with what he brings to the table. It's not too often that you get a chance to add the Vezina Trophy winning goalie to your team in the off season, but that's the situation we were in, and couldn't be more excited to have him here with us in Chicago. And I know in talking to him, he was really excited for the year to come. We also have some other things to cover going back to the draft. There's been a lot of activity with our team. I guess in no particular order, I'll talk about the trade we made leading into free agency when we were able to bring Tyler Johnson into the fold. Looking back on his career, it's kind of funny how it comes full circle. But when he was coming out of junior as a top free agent, we were trying hard to land Tyler. And I think from talking to him, I think it came down to Tampa Bay and Chicago, and he chose Tampa, but had a great run there. Last 2 years, Stanley Cup champion, and bringing someone in like that to our group, it speaks on a lot of levels. He's coming in with a lot of experience, but we think he's got a lot of game left as well. Looking at our center ice position now, you've got Jonathan Taves coming back, you've got Kirby coming into his third season, and you got Tyler Johnson joining the mix. I think it gives us a real solid foundation of those three players down the middle. I talked a little bit ago about Marc-Andre Fleury in the net, and also on defense. We talked last time about Seth Jones coming in, and Caleb as well. On free agent day, we were able to add Jake McCabe to the mix. Jake's a player I've been familiar with for a while. A couple of years back when I was working with Team USA, I remember we had a tournament, I believe it was in Russia, and the two defensemen that really caught my eye that tournament were Connor Murphy and Jake McCabe. And I remember leaving there thinking, wow, these guys are really good young defensemen. It seems like they've got a bright career ahead of them, and it'd be nice one day to be able to bring them to Chicago. And I think a couple of years later, we were able to bring Connor here, and now here we are adding Jake as well. He brings a lot to the table. I love his style of play. Competitive, strong, physical, takes pride in defending and doing a lot of the things that some guys don't want to do, sacrificing his body, blocking shots, playing physical in front of the net. So I think he's going to be a nice addition to our back end, and we've tried to bring in some defensemen that have a strong pedigree of performance and helping to upgrade that position for us. As well, on free agent day, we brought in Jujar Kara from Edmonton. He brings another element of size and strength to our team. He's got some versatility. He was used both as a centerman, as a winger. So we like his approach to the game. He plays competitively, and it's an element we don't have a lot of. So we're trying to bring some of that to blend in with some of the highly skilled players that we have up front. So when you mix that all together, it certainly is a nice group that's coming in this season. And when we met about 9-10 months ago and talked about the direction we were heading as a team, I think what we were clear about was wanting to rebuild our roster. And I think we've tried to do that. If you look back at all the transactions we've made going back to then, we've been trying to incorporate young players or assets coming our way. Even in the Tyler Johnson deal, we were able to bring in a second round pick as well. Same thing in the Keith trade. We bring in a young defenseman and a draft pick. So, we're really trying to continue to build up our assets, but at the same time, we also want to try to take a step forward and improve as a team. And we believe in our young players that are here. We want to support them as best we can, and we think adding a few players like this of experience that are still big contributors, and they're able to add something to our group. We think that's going to help support our young group here as we continue to go forward. So a lot of reason for excitement and optimism, and with that, I will open it up for questions.
Great, thank you very much, Stan. We will start off with Tracy Myers from NHL.com. Tracy, your mic is active and you can go ahead.
Hi, Stan. Thanks for doing this. You kind of touched upon it, but yeah, this is, I would assume, I'm thinking back the last couple of years, this has to be one of the busier off seasons you've had. And, how confident are you with this group going into the fall? Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. It was busy, and you have a plan in place, and you don't know if it's ever going to all come together. But I would say what we're doing here is it's all part of a process that was set in motion, couple of years ago, when we were trying to position ourselves to have the flexibility and to be nimble enough to make strategic additions at the right time. But it doesn't really change the path that we were on. We still want to build this as we go forward and show progress this year and continue to see our young players grow. If anything, we're trying to surround those players with some stronger players, and to give our team a little bit more confidence that we can grow as a group. So for sure, when you bring in experienced players that have won Stanley Cups and had success individually, I think there's reason for optimism and excitement. And this is an extension of our plan from before. We're not really changing course. What we're trying to do is surround these young players that are here, give them a good foundation, and have a strong team on the ice.
We'll go now to Scott Powers with The Athletic. Scott, your mic is active. Go ahead, please.
Hey, Stan. I know last time we talked to you about the independent review, you didn't feel like it was your place to say whether the findings should be made public. With Danny's decision today, did you support that?
Well, I think Danny said it pretty clearly there that this independent review is going to be something that the share results with our employees, our partners, our fans, and whatnot. So I intend to cooperate fully with the investigation, like I said last time we met, and I think Danny was very clear on the direction the organization's taking.
With getting Marc-Andre Fleury, can you walk us through that process, and just maybe even the recent days where obviously he probably needed some insurance just moving his family, and it sounded like that he felt pretty comfortable about being here and obviously just moving his family and doing that again? Yeah,
well, Scott, I can identify with that. I mean, he's got young children, and I have kids as well, and it's a tough life to be a player, and I think it's probably obvious that it was a surprise for him to when the trade went down. And from my first conversation with him, I think it was very consistent. He said, "Look, thanks so much for the call," and he just talked about how he said, "I just need a little bit of time to get through these things. So, if you could have a little patience, that would be great." And I said, "No, not a problem at all." And, I put myself in his shoes, and, it's hard when you have young children like that. So I got a call the other day from him, and really excited about coming here to visit Chicago, looking for where he could live and getting a little bit, he's been here a number of times, obviously, but it's a little bit different when you come in as a player on a road trip versus where you're going to actually spend your time. So once we had that conversation, and we were very willing to give him the time that he needed to process through everything, and just talking to him today, listening to his excitement, the smile on his face. And the one thing I'll say about Marc-Andre Fleury that people in the media probably know this, but it's really incredible how when you talk to people around the league, he is the most beloved teammate on every team he's ever played on. Just a fantastic person. And I can see why. I've heard that from so many players over the years who've had a chance to be on a team with him. Even, people that work in our hockey ops group. And I asked, tell me what you can about Marc-Andre Fleury. And without exception, they all said the most incredible teammate you'll ever see. Such a great guy. Loves the game, loves to play. Just is someone you want to be around as much as possible. So when we heard that, these are all things you do your research ahead of time before you make a trade. But then getting him here, spending some time with him in a little bit more of a relaxed setting, you can see why he's so beloved by everybody.
We'll go now to Pat Boyle with NBC Sports Chicago. Pat, your mic's active. You can go ahead, please.
Hey, Stan, when you look at what's on the horizon here, probably resigning Hagel and Nylander, do you think you'll have to move a player that's currently on the roster to get under the cap?
No, we're not going to have to make any moves, Pat. We might make a move if we think it makes sense, for the future of the team or in that transaction, if we think it benefits us. But we're in a good situation relative to the salary cap. We have some flexibility there with how we compose our roster for the opening night. We still have Andrew Shaw, who's not going to be playing this year. So there's the option of using the long-term injury if we choose to do that. But we've looked at our roster and our cap situation many times, and we know we have a lot of options. So I think all the moves that we made were done strategically so that we're going to have the flexibility. And that was a big part of what went into the Tyler Johnson trade was, not only did we get a centerman that we're excited about, we think is going to help solidify that center ice position, but we're able to move out Brent Seabrook's contract. And I had a chance to talk to Brent about the situation, and he understood where we were at, and he's always going to be a Blackhawk. I think that's important to remember, but these are types of trades that are happening in modern day NHL. And actually, when I was talking to Julian Brisebois, he kind of commented, they had to do this similar thing with Ryan Callahan back a couple of years ago. He was traded to Ottawa in the same type of a situation. So, in that transaction, we were able to clear out some cap space as well as add a really functional player for us. So, and get a second round pick. So I think, we gamed this out pretty well, knowing we've got some flexibility with our roster, and we feel comfortable with where we are today.
Obviously, you added to your top 4 D-core, and we have plenty of time to see how things shake down in camp. But when you talk to Jeremy and you spitball things, who do you guys think you will pair with Seth Jones? Could you see DeHaan and Jones together, or do you see McCabe and Jones together?
Good question, Pat. Probably a bit early. I haven't really had those conversations yet. We've been working on so many things here. I think the key thing was just to bring the players into the mix. Now we'll spend the next 6 to 8 weeks planning out what could the team look like. So I know that Jeremy and his coaching staff have had their own thoughts recently about that. They're huddling on those types of things. I haven't really been in the mix on that. I think the good news is we have a lot of options on the left side, whether it's DeHaan or Stillman, Jake McCabe, Caleb Jones. We've got some experienced players there, some young players there. It depends on how they want to run it as a staff, but I think having options is pretty attractive for the coaches.
We'll go now to Mark Lazarus with The Athletic. Laz, your mic's active. You can go ahead, please.
Hi, Stan. When you openly declared a rebuild last fall, that was less than a year ago. Did you envision this kind of acquisition spree this summer, or did something change along the way?
Well, no, like I said, Mark, we have been planning to have the flexibility to do these types of moves. But the thing is, you don't really know when these players are going to come available. So I think you have to be flexible enough so that of course, we're doing planning now for next off season and the year after. Like that's part of what we do. But to say that we knew all these transactions would come to place at this point in time, that would be inaccurate. I think what we knew back then was we were trying to set up an environment where we would have the flexibility to do it, have the assets to do it, and have the cap space to do it. So when we set out to say we're going to rebuild our roster, that's in fact what we want to do. We want to rely on the growth of our young players to carry this forward, and that's still the case. Looking at our young players here, whether it's, we haven't talked about Kirby Dach or Alex DeBrincat or Hagel, or we've got newcomers and Henrik Borgstrom coming in. So we've got a lot of young players still here and more on the way. But, I guess supplementing the roster with some accomplished players at the same time, I think is a good thing too. So it wasn't like these series of transactions were all mapped out back in October of last year, but we were trying to put ourselves in the position so that we could do it if it all came together.
There's been a lot of talk in LA that Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar wanted to expedite things. Did Kane and Taves have any input? Did they express any urgency to you to kind of get back competitive as quickly as possible here?
Not in those terms, Mark. I mean, I talk to them often, and of course, hockey players want to win. I would say if you were to ask any player on our team or another team, ask them, what do you think about trying to win this year or 3 years from now? I think everybody wants to win, right? That's why they're athletes, and that's why they're competitive, and that's what makes them professional athletes. So of course, that they want to win, but I wouldn't say it was not a reaction to those types of conversations.
We'll go now to Ben Pope with the Chicago Sun-Times. Ben, your mic's active. Go ahead, please.
Hi, Stan. You mentioned back in the opening statement that Taves, Dach, and Johnson provide a solid core of centers. Just a couple follow-ups on that. For one, does that imply there's any more concrete info on Taves' return? And then secondly, just with Strome, I guess not being mentioned in that group, where do you sort of see him fitting in moving forward?
There's been no change, Ben, as far as Jonathan's situation. At the same time, same answer I gave the other day, which is we're all hopeful that he continues on his path and training and feeling better. Nothing's derailed that. So, but with what he's gone through, we don't know where it's going to be. So we just keep here we are today. Things are looking good, and that's our thought moving forward. I think as far as Dylan goes, he's played probably his best hockey at center. It's not to say that he won't be playing center going forward, but he also used some time on the wing. Johnson played some wing there because they had a lot of centers in Tampa as well. So there could be a scenario where Johnson's on the wing and Strome is at center. We've got Borgstrom coming in as well, Adam Gaudette. We've got a lot of centers. So some of them are going to be playing on the wing. And that's okay. I think Jeremy's been pretty clear about this, that he loves the flexibility to move players from the wing to center and likewise center to the wing. So we've got a lot of our forwards who have, I guess with the exception of Kane, DeBrincat, and Kubalik, they're primarily wingers. I think beyond that, though, most of the other players have some experience at both. So where it all shakes out, I don't quite know. I just know that we like having that depth at center.
And then just wondering if you could talk about some of the guys who moved on, Pius Suter, Kampf, Hinostroza, although I get he was a UFA, and just obviously certainly a crowded forward group, but what went into the decisions to not re-sign them?
Yeah, most of those decisions were primarily salary cap related. Just looking, we wanted to bring these players back, and you negotiate with their agents, and looking at where the numbers were as far as where we felt comfortable paying them, and where they were looking in the market, there wasn't really a match, and when that happens, the players find roles elsewhere. But, I thought that that's not that uncommon to have, forwards move from team to team. We certainly made an attempt to keep them here. And, but at the same time, I think some change is good for our forward group. And I think looking forward, I like the look of our team right now and the players that we have. I think we've got a fair amount of talent.
We'll go now to Rick Westhead from TSN. Rick, your mic is active. You can go ahead, please.
Thank you. Stand up with several groups that advocate for the survivor of sexual abuse about your leadership position with the U.S. Olympic team. The Army of Survivors is one such group. It was founded by survivors of Larry Nassar. And that group's CEO, Julianne Cochran, told me she has concerns about you continuing your role with USA Hockey right now, and suggests that you should be taking a leave of absence unless and until you're cleared by at least the Jenner and Block investigation. Could you respond to that?
You broke up a little in the beginning there, Rick, but I think I got the gist of what you're saying. What I'll say is that USA Hockey has been in close contact with the Blackhawks on a variety of topics. I'm not really involved in those conversations, but right now my responsibility here is with the Blackhawks to try to get our team to the top of the league and try to work things out. As far as that, and the USA Hockey goes, that's probably not something I can directly comment on.
We'll go now to Charlie Romeliotis from NBC Sports Chicago. Charlie, your mic is active. You can go ahead, please.
Hey, Stan, I just want to ask you about the expectations of this team moving forward. Do you feel like it's fair, given all the moves, that you can expect this team to compete for a playoff spot this season?
Well, that was our goal last year. So yes, I would say that's your goal going into the season. We didn't quite get there this past season, but we had a pretty strong push up until maybe the last 10 to 14 days of the year, and we obviously came up short. So the goal is to improve on your previous year's performance, and we brought some new players in, which we think can help push us forward and show some growth. But we're not going to rely exclusively on those new faces. We want the players that were here last year to also take a step forward. So yeah, what we're hoping for is a competitive team that's pushing for playoffs, and that's why we all do this. And certainly some years it's more likely than others, and some years you have a long hill to climb. I think this year we fell a little short last season, and we're looking to take a step forward. So there's a lot of reason for excitement and optimism with our group. And I can tell you we're really looking forward to the chance when we convene in September as a group with these new players and get to see everybody together on the ice.
We'll go now to John Dietz with the Daily Herald. John, your mic's active. Go ahead, please.
Stan, I want to go back to Fleury for a minute. Can you go through just how did you contact Vegas right away? How you knew he was available? Did you consider just a minor risk that you'd be trading for him? Because obviously you took yourself kind of out of the market for goalies on the opening day of free agency. And then was there any recruitment by Taves and Kane that you know
of? Well, I don't want to give all the details of my conversations with Vegas, but I think it was sort of well known that they had a lot of money in their goaltending, and they were trying to make some other moves. So they were going to potentially be making a move. And at that point, we had a number of discussions over the weeks leading up to the trade itself, and those deals don't come together overnight. So in the interim there, you don't really involve your players recruiting a player when he's not on your team. That's not something that's allowable. But once we had traded for him, I think in particular, Jonathan had some experience with Marc-Andre from the Olympics in 2010. So, they knew each other. And I think it was really just sort of a reach out to say, hey, we'd love to have you here, that type of thing. But that was after the trade was made. So, I mean, I guess you could make that argument. There's risk in every trade you make. I don't know if there's any more risk in this trade than any other ones, but I just look at where we are today, and I love the energy that Marc-Andre brings to the team. You'll get to know him over the coming months, and I think you're going to have a good time talking with him. He's a fantastic person.
And then just back to Mark's question a little bit ago about Taves and Kane. We know they have 2 years left on their contracts. You said it wasn't these moves weren't a reaction to any of those conversations. But, we know those guys are like you said, they're probably tired of losing. And so was there any a little bit push to get the team back on the winning track because their contracts are coming up in a couple of years?
No, John, I guess what I'll say is how I answered Mark is kind of the same thing here, which is players want to win. I mean, every player, whether they're a 3-time Stanley Cup champion or whether they're a rookie that's trying to get in the league, that's why they play sports, is to win. I think you don't make it to be a professional hockey player if you don't have that competitiveness. So I think it's true to say that they want to win. I don't know if that differentiates them from anyone else who's, when they show up and put their equipment on and get on the ice, they want to win. And I think that we're looking for players that want to win. And I think if you're not driven by competitiveness and competition, then you're probably not the player we want on the team. So I would just say that, of course they want to win, but I think they're joined by everyone else in that locker room that wants to win.
We'll go now to Joe Brand with WGN Radio. Joe, your mic is active. You can go ahead, please.
Hi, Stan. I know that Marc-Andre Fleury asked for a little bit of patience from you after the move was made, but where was your optimism level at that point? And then did it stay at wherever it was until you got the call that he was in, or were you hearing anything about maybe him leaning one way or the other? I mean, how did that grow for him to totally affirm that he was going to come?
No, I wouldn't say I was nervous at all. I think I just looked at it more from a human being's perspective, and I really understood what he was going through. I mean, you're not expecting to be traded when all of a sudden you get a phone call and say your life is changing and your family's life is changing. I think it would be difficult for any of us to just jump right into this new world. I think you need a little time to let it breathe. So I put myself in his shoes, and I totally understood it. I mean, from everything I knew about Marc-Andre, he loves to play the game of hockey, just loves it. He loves to be on the ice. He loves to stay late after practice ends and continue to do extra work with the guys. And like, that's what he's just one of these guys. Not everyone's the same way. Some players, as they get older, they kind of want to maybe less on ice work, and they want to conserve their energy. But that's not the feedback we got. He loves the game. He just came off the best season. He won the Vezina Trophy. I think, we were comfortable that when he was given the right time, that he would be excited to join our group.
And Tyler Johnson was talking about how when you reconnected with him this time around, he mentioned the last time, or rather his first contract was between the Blackhawks and the Lightning, and he went with the Lightning. What do you remember from past interest of getting him, and what insight can you share with this time actually getting him?
Well, obviously he's had a great career. Here we are now. I don't know what it was, 8 or 10 years later. And I think he's shown, at the time he was an undersized player, he was never drafted. So he was a free agent. He had a great junior career. I think those players sometimes have to prove themselves. When you go through a couple drafts and, he's not the big first round pick. You have to prove yourself, and boy, did he ever prove it. I mean, he came up through the ranks there in the minors and had a great season, and he's been, an elite performer at the NHL level. And just looking at his versatility, we talked a lot about him playing center. He's a right-handed centerman, which I think is always nice to have. You have that balance. We've got Kirby Dach, and we've got Tyler Johnson that can take draws on the one side. You got Taves and Strome and whomever else on the other side. So we've got the flexibility in his game, but I think it's just the skill set, and he plays a pretty honest two-way game. So he's had some pretty productive years. He's scored 60, 70 points in the league. And he'd done it in the playoffs as well. But, he's able to play two-way hockey. And I think coaches appreciate that part of his game as well. So those things haven't changed since we first showed interest in him. If anything, now he's been able to do it at the NHL level.
Our final question will come from Carter Baum from Blackhawks.com. Carter, you can go ahead.
Hey, Stan, I know the defense has been the focus the last couple of years, and we saw a lot of positive steps from the young guys, both on the blue line and in that last year. But where's your confidence at in this group and the additions you've been able to make as a whole with Fleury and Seth and Caleb Jones and Jake McCabe? I mean, how excited are you with the developments you've been able to make, especially on the back half of the ice?
Well, I think I touched on it a bit earlier, that it's always important to have that strength down the middle, your center ice position, your defenseman, and your goaltending. I think that's a pretty consistent approach and blueprint for having a good team. So I think we have the makings of that here, certainly on paper. Now we have to translate that onto the ice. But in particular on the back end, I like the different options that we have. I think if you look back to last season, I was encouraged by the performance from Wyatt Kalynuk as well as Riley Stillman. I thought they came on near the end of the year there. So they're two names that we haven't talked about. We've got young players. We still have Beaudin and Mitchell. So we've got a lot of young defensemen, Alec Regula as well. So, those players, the last couple I just mentioned, are all still growing their games. Riley Stillman's he's only 23, so he's growing. But we've got now some stable, solidified NHL defensemen that can shoulder the load, play against, top players. And obviously Connor Murphy did it last year, but now we've got Seth Jones and Jake McCabe on top of that. So I think the options we have and the experience that we bring, it's going to make our team defense more effective. And I think we need that if we want to take the next step as a team. So the goaltender is going to help. We still have Kevin Lankinen here, who I thought had a great season last year. And, we look at around the league and you're seeing more and more tandems that are effective in today's day and age. And I expect, we've got two really good goalies. We've got one that's kind of up and coming in Lankinen, and then we've got another one who just won the Vezina Trophy. So, you put those two together, they're going to support one another. They're going to push each other to be better. I think we're going to have strong goaltending each night, and our defense is going to be much improved. So when you add that up, I think it bodes well for our team.
Stan, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Media, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.